Good morning and welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our Conga Alliance Partner Showcase webinar. The purpose of these webinars is to introduce you, our customers, to the Salesforce.com consulting partners that we work with on a regular basis and give you the opportunity to get to know more about their practice, the services they offer, beyond just Conga implementations. Today we're very happy to showcase and introduce BackOffice Thinking and Space Coast CRM. Donna Wittig from BackOffice Thinking and Jake Ferris from Space Coast CRM will each present for approximately 15 minutes, and we'll also have 15 minutes at the end of the webinar to answer any questions. All the attendees will be muted. We will be recording this webinar and posting it to our website should you care to review it or share it with colleagues or watch at a later time. If you do have questions, please submit those in the questions section. And we'll be monitoring those and keep a list of those for the end of the webinar. So without further ado, very happy to introduce Donna Wittig from BackOffice Thinking to take it away.
Thanks, Chris. Today, what I was thinking I was going to talk about was how Conga is able to help land conservation organizations do what they need to do best. So if you could go ahead and go to the next slide. Chris, I don't know if you can hear me okay. Can you go ahead and go to the next slide for me? Seem to be having some technical difficulties here. Okay. I'm with BackOffice Thinking. We're a small technology consulting firm based out of Westchester, Pennsylvania. Our focus is primarily on nonprofit organizations, and we've helped hundreds of nonprofits nationwide. In addition to providing CTO level services, we also support all kinds of different technologies. So of course you could go ahead and move to the next slide. We can look at some of the different things that BackOffice Thinking does for organizations. Okay, apparently there must be some kind of delay. Right now, I'm looking at the About BackOffice Thinking slide. I think we may have moved on to the next one, I'm not sure, but a little bit about what BackOffice Thinking does is we do all kinds of different technologies like CRM, constituent relationship management, software like Salesforce, Civi CRM, Nation Builder, as well as content management systems such as Drupal, WordPress, Joomla, and e-commerce. What we've done with relationship to Conga and what I'm going to talk today about is how land conservation organizations are using Conga. So I want to tell you a little bit about what is a land conservation organization. Basically, they're typically known as land trusts. They're mostly all nonprofit charitable organizations that acquire and manage land for conservation purposes. As part of their operations, they work with landowners to help them understand the benefits of land conservation. So when a landowner decides to conserve their land, there are a series of these due diligence tasks that they need to do to create the easement. And then once the easement is in place, there are stewardship activities that happen, and they need to do yearly monitoring. And all that stuff needs to be reported on. There are over 1,700 land trusts in the United States. So far, they've conserved over 37 million acres of land. So just a little bit of background. If we go to the next slide, that's titled Land Trusts in Salesforce. What we did in relation to land trusts is we were contracted by the Colorado Coalition of Land Trusts right there in Colorado, where Conga is located, to help them find a solution to create a product to help land trust. So we went through a requirement selection process with them. We've looked at some different products, and we landed on Salesforce. And then what we did was we built an application called Locate on top of Salesforce that helps them do all their stewardship and due diligence processing. It began as a pilot program for land trusts in Colorado, and now it's offered as a product nationwide. So once they got the land trust using Locate, if you could go to the next slide for me. This just shows you a little bit about Locate. It's a product that was written on the Salesforce platform, and it lets them, what's nice about it is they can do all their donor management, their membership management, their grant management, land acquisition and stewardship activities right within Salesforce. So before using Salesforce and Locate, Land Trust had this data spread out over many different systems. There was no visibility into all the ways constituents interacted with their organization. Now there's standard fields for tracking data and standard reports and dashboards to analyze that data. Okay, if we go to the next slide, what does it have to do with Conga? Well, when we looked at the different things that the land trust needed to do, there was a lot of advanced reporting and formatting that they needed to do around their reports, and we decided that Conga would be the best tool for that. So basically, Conga is enabling land trust using Salesforce to get the information that they need in a format that makes sense for how they operate. And because now they can house all their data in one system, it allows them to get the different reports across their operations that they need, and they no longer need to do a lot of manual work related to that. So if we go ahead and move on to the next slide, we'll take a look at our first use case. So this use case that you're going to be looking at here is related to an inventory report that management uses to present information to their board of directors. So on the use case 1 slide, basically we'll see the problem is that the inventory report took a significant amount of manual work pulling together data from multiple sources. It was time consuming to pull together. There was a lot of opportunities for errors. What they did was once the data was in Salesforce, we used Conga combined with some different reports to pull data from several different objects in Salesforce into Excel with a click of a button. And what that was able to let them do is they didn't have to manually update information anymore. They weren't cutting and pasting this information from multiple sources. They weren't chasing down departments for information. The information was always the most up-to-date, and it was presented in a way that was suitable for the board of directors. So, I mean, their old Excel spreadsheet was a good representation of the data, but it took them a lot of time to get the data into that spreadsheet in the right format. And with Conga and storing the information in Salesforce, they didn't have to collate that anymore. So if we go to the next slide, we can take a look at what that new Conga report looks like. So what we'll see on here is a series of tabs within the Excel spreadsheet. So this solution uses basically information from 4 different reports, and the data is pulled directly into Salesforce, and it populates the 3 tabs with the most up-to-date data in seconds. This would have really been impossible to do without the use of Conga, and it really does save them hours of manual manipulation. So I think I still have a delay because I still see the use case 1 slide, but okay, here we go. On this, what you're looking at here is the first tab pulls data about each easement they hold. So it tells them all their easements, who the property owner is, the public name, the value. The second tab pulls data related to the funding on the projects, which is actually stored in a related object. It's actually stored in opportunities. And the third tab pulls the primary contacts associated with each property, which is stored on a related list with a relationship to the property. So what was nice about this is now they've got all the data in Salesforce. They can click a button, they can reproduce the report they used to have to do manually and manually update from different sources each year, and it's always fresh and up to date. And because they're storing it in Salesforce, they can analyze this data within Salesforce in ways that they couldn't do before when they were storing these in all different spreadsheets. So that was one of the first things that we did for the land trust. The next use case, if we go over to the next slide, has to do with their monitoring process. So each year, what happens is the land trust staff has to go out to the properties and they monitor the properties to make sure that they're meeting the guidelines of the conservation easement. So they have to actually physically go out to the property, take a look at it, talk with the landowner, and make any observation notes about the property. So the problem with this was they would come back, they would have all this data, and they would need to get that into a monitoring report. So this would take a lot of time. So the monitoring reports took a lot of time to generate. There was no consistency on how they were formatted, so one monitor might make his report look different than another monitor. The information was stored in a way that was not good for analysis, so it was okay for the report to go back to the landowners, but they really couldn't take advantage of, doing any statistics or analysis around that data. The visibility to previous years' monitoring information was cumbersome because it was in these reports in Word, so if they wanted to go back and look at 1 year's versus the next year's, they had to pull out paper reports. And it really wasted a lot of time gathering the information from various sources. So what we did was we used Salesforce to collect the data and then Conga to generate the monitoring report. And what that did for them, it gave them consistency between the monitors, so each monitor's reports were generated in the same manner. It was a quicker turnaround time for report generation because basically when they go out on the fields, if they have cell access, they can input their data right while they're out there monitoring their property, and it gets stored into Salesforce, and then they can come back and basically generate the report with a click. Any of the pictures that they take on the property during the visit can be integrated directly into the report, so there's no rekeying. And data from their monitoring is in a format in Salesforce that's available for analysis and historical reporting, which was not the case before. They would have to basically take the data from these paper monitoring reports, key them into a spreadsheet in order to do any kind of analysis on them. So if we go to the next slide, we can take a look at what that monitoring report looks like. So what you're seeing here is basically information that's pulled from about 4 different objects into one report, and then the images from their visit are embedded into the report. So basically what they do is the data on the left-hand side of the report about the property and what happened during the monitoring visit is stored at the easement and on the monitoring, each year's monitoring records. And then the pictures that they took are actually stored in external hosting, picture file hosting service. So in the merge for Conga, what we did was we just referenced those external images in the report. So in Salesforce, they have, for the monitoring record, they have related photos, and they say where the link to those related photos and where they should be embedded into the monitoring report. So basically what used to take a long time to copy and paste all this stuff into this monitoring report, now it pulls it all into the report with just a click of one button. So those were the two really use cases I wanted to highlight around how Conga was able to help these land trusts really save a lot of time with what they needed to do and give them really a more consistent professional look to what they were trying to do, the materials that they were putting out. And what we were able to do, back office thinking with them, is to help them pull the data, do the more complex queries or the reports that they needed to create the Conga presentations. So if you want to go to the next slide, Chris. So if you want more information about back office thinking, about what we do, some of the clients that we've worked with, you can go to our website, visit us at www.backofficethinking.com, or certainly follow us on Twitter at BackOfficeThink. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you, Chris.
Donna, thank you so very much. We appreciate it. Really like seeing those two land use or land trust use cases, especially that monitoring report was terrific. So thank you. Would encourage everyone on the webinar to reach out to Back Office Thinking, and Donna, if you've got questions about those solutions or similar solutions, a terrific resource and a great partner for Conga and Salesforce as well. I'm going to turn it over now to Jake Ferris from Space Coast CRM, and he will run through his presentation as well. If you've got questions, by all means, please submit them through that question tab in the GoToMeeting. So, Jake, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. I have quite a few slides to get through, so first things first, I'd like to thank Allison and Chris and Conga for the opportunity to present today. It's a privilege. And you can go to the next slide. Second, I suppose I should say something about Space Coast. As our name implies, we're headquartered in Merritt Island, Florida, just down Highway 3 from Kennedy Space Center. But we have consultants on both coasts and clients from everywhere in between. We have experience in everything from global implementations to 15 user startups. So I guess you could say we are general specialists. And building custom Conga solutions is one of our specialties, which brings me to what I'm going to present today. I guess, and you can go to the next slide. I guess I wanted to present a very specific use case that's kind of in two parts. The client that contacted us needed an account review solution, so we had to generate a document that an account executive could go to one of their customers and review different items. And but because of the confidentiality and disclosure agreements we signed, I've had to abstract the solution and work up a fictional vertical, a business process, all the data to go along with it. But here it is kind of in a nutshell. The fictional company is called Just for Fun. It's a coin-operated leasing and servicing business, so it leases and services coin-operated video games, entertainment, skee ball, etc. The customers are arcades or family fun centers, and the account that we're working with, this fictional account that we're working with, is an arcade called Treasure Island. Each account, like Treasure Island, could have a leasing contract, service contracts, data, data below that relates to those contracts, etc. So it's a relatively complicated set of data around each account. There's a back end that generates a usage record for each coin-operated entertainment for the day, so that the usage of each machine is tracked every day, and that's added to Salesforce as a record. And the service contracts cover a number of service hours a month, but if the customer goes over those service hours that are allotted a month, an invoice record is created, and that's tracked in Salesforce as well. So there's a lot of different options that an account executive might be needing to choose from in terms of delivering an account review document. And so one of the solutions was they needed, each user, each account executive needed a discretion about what to include. The document should require very little editing. And one of the challenges with the industry is that there's a high turnover rate for account executives. So access to reports is non-existent or limited because a client didn't want account executives to access reports, export data, and then leave the company. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. That's kind of the situation in a nutshell. I also kind of want to do a little caveat. I wanted to avoid doing a solution gloss, so we're kind of going to get into some nitty-gritty. It's not, I didn't want to do a how-to, but there's a list at the end. My last slide has a list of kind of the resources that I used and any tutorials or how-tos that I used. So the solution design for this use case was we needed switches at the account level or on the account record. We needed an agenda list that needed to be conditional to the switches. We needed tables that needed to be conditional to the switches. And we needed to use queries to feed the tables because we weren't able to use reports. And then finally, the little added wrinkle is that we needed a summary number. For example, we needed to summarize like the last 90-day usage metrics from the machine so that the account executive, if they wanted to, could show how much the machines are getting used. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So here's just a high-level view of an arcade's child records or data. So here's some examples of the tables that we needed to generate in the account review document. This is, in this fictional world, this is a relatively young account. So you could see how the data could exponentially grow over time. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is some grandchild data, so data related to the child records that we need to pull as well, that we need fed into the account review document as well. There's service calls for the service contracts that we might want to add. And then there's, at the bottom there's usage metrics for each machine. This is the first 5 of probably over 100 usage records. Go to the next slide, please. So the first and easiest thing to build were the discretionary switches. So we just built checkboxes for each table or item that should or shouldn't be added to the account review document. So there's one for leasing, service contracts, invoices or billing, entertainment machines or assets, or coin ops, however you want to call them, usage logs, and then total performance, which is the summary of how the machines are performing. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So then it got a little more challenging. We needed to build the queries. Conga has a great solution called Query Builder. You create a query record, which is just like you create any other record in Salesforce. Give it a name. You can add a description. Once it's saved, you can click this button called the Conga Query Builder button. Go ahead and go to the next slide, which walks you through a wizard that is really straightforward and easy to use. You click, for example, start at the top there. You choose the object. You can choose fields related to that object or any related objects. You can choose criteria. You know, one of the most common criteria would be like the account ID. And then you can order the list, if you so choose, by a certain field. You can also limit the number of results if you need to. And then the last step to the wizard is that you can see the SQL query displayed there, and then you can do any tests of the criteria if you want to, by entering the data there and clicking the preview button. And then you just, once you save, click the save button, that SQL query gets saved to the query record. So go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is the developer console that actually started to use because of this requirement. And it allows you, it's usually under your name up in the right corner of Salesforce. You can open it up and test queries a little bit more. Allows you a little bit more freedom in testing queries and editing them, seeing results, seeing any error messages. And so is one of the tools that was definitely helpful to use. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is when this is just like you build the button to consult reports, you add code to the button that consults the queries. And one of the really neat tools is that you can actually title the queries using end brackets, which really helps when it comes to building the template, because you're not having to decipher any kind of code. So I added titles for each query, and then we just went into the template builder, really easily built out the tables and the template. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is the first run of the document, the account review document, and you can see almost immediately that there is the potential for data overload. So this is the first 6 pages, I think, of a 116-page document. And so the account executive in this case, though they may have need to display or to go over a lot of data, in this case they don't need 116 pages. So those discretionary switches are really going to come in handy. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Building the discretionary switches, Conga has a great YouTube tutorial. You build them using word merge fields, and I'm not going to get into that here, but consult the tutorial. And so what you do is you take on the left there, you can see, tables as you usually see them in your document, and then you build the if statements, and then you wrap the table in the if statements. So the if statement is there up in the upper right, and then the tables wrapped in the if statements are in the lower right. And it gets kind of ugly, but it's really important you have to kind of butt the if statements up against each other so that you can avoid any extra spaces in the document. It creates doesn't create necessarily an easy document to work with when you're working on it, but it makes a very pretty document. It produces a very pretty document. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So the kind of the final wrinkle with the data was was creating the summary of the data using SQL. So just a real quick, this is in a nutshell. The query was created. I put the framework together for the SQL query using the query builder, and then I used that developer console to make any changes and to check the output. For example, I used this to get to check for the last 90 days of usage. I needed to add that SQL statement that checks the last 90 days. And then everything else is pretty straightforward. You create the, use a template builder to create the table, put it in the document. Of course, you wrap it in the conditional statement, and there's the end result there at the very bottom right corner. And it's working fine. So go ahead and go to the next slide. And so we've got the tables generating conditionally, but now we've got this agenda that's listing, in the left there, it's listing all the possible items to go over in the account review. But what we wanted to do is show the ones that the account executive checked. So now we wrap each of those in its corresponding conditional statement. And again, you get kind of an ugly code there, because you have to, again, you have to get things to butt up against each other, and you have to put in the formatting within the code. But the end result, and go ahead and go to the next slide. The end result makes it all worth it. Here we've gone to a 116-page document to a 3-page document that is very strategic and targeted in what the account executive wants to show. And all they had to do was click a series of checkboxes on the account and click the button, and they get this document. No editing or messing with the formatting or any of that stuff. So go ahead, and I think the last slide is next. Yep, here's just the awesome material that's out there. Conga 8 Quick Starts, of course, helped a lot if you're new to Conga 8. And then the what I call the SQL Bible, which is the Salesforce document that basically has everything about SQL in it, including all the good list of the codes that you can use, and then the conditional, how to build conditional merge fields, which is a Conga tutorial, which is, again, vital. So, and I think that is it. So thank you, everyone who stayed with me through that fast and furious demonstration. And thank you again to Allison and Chris and everyone at Conga for this opportunity.
Jake, thank you. That's a really neat solution that shows the power of the query builder, the sum feature, the aggregated queries, to be able to take a lot of data and then be able to show just what's selected. So that's a really, really neat solution using if statements and SQL queries. So thank you both. Wanted to make sure that all the attendees attending the webinar know how to reach out and contact Donna and Jake at BackOffice Thinking and Space Coast. Please reach out to our partners for help with your Salesforce, Conga projects, Salesforce implementation, optimization, other third-party apps. Donna and Jake both really highlighted some Conga solutions, but both are very, very well versed in Salesforce.com, other App Exchange apps as well. So great resource to all of you should you have those needs. Also, for our attendees, if you would like to get started on your own or continue on your own, we've got plenty of resources to help you on your way. These are all on our website. You can get to there from congasphere.com or congamerge.com. Documentation, quick starts, webinars, a link to Conga University is there as well. We also have our YouTube channel youtube.com/congamerge with a variety of those. And of course, as you know, you can always call or email our business analyst team at support@congamerge.com or those numbers as well. So wonderful. I think we're in good shape, so wonderful. Thanks everyone. Remember, this webinar will be posted to our website, recorded should you choose to take a look at it again. If you'd like to reach out and contact either Jake or Donna. Our webinar will be posted to the website shortly, probably today or tomorrow. And join us next on November 5th for our next Alliance Partner Showcase webinar. So that will conclude that for our webinar today. And yes, that question about getting the URL for the resources that Jake recommended, you'll receive an email with the details, and also this webinar will be posted to the website, so you'll have access to all of these slides. So thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Again, thanks Donna and Jake, and have a great day.